Chapter 4. A shadow falls upon the achieves. Elara felt a sudden sense of fear. The unnatural speed of the fire, its strange color, and the way it spread made it clear this was no accident. It was a deliberate attack on Eldoria. The smell of burning parchment signaled the loss of important knowledge and history. Smoke rose to the ceiling as the destruction threatened their world. The ancestral pacts, a voice, thick with despair, cried out from the heart of the chaos. The scrolls of the First Covenant are in there. The scrolls of First Covenant. The scrolls which formed the foundation of the relationship between gods and mortals, recording the original oaths that established order in Eldoria. If they were destroyed, the balance maintained for centuries could be lost. The hum of the other scrolls, once steady and reassuring, began to weaken amid the disaster. Elara watched helplessly as the fire spread. The archivists tried to stop it, but they were overpowered. Their efforts proved ineffective as the flames grew stronger. Desperation and fear showed on their faces as they realized they were not just fighting a fire, but a deliberate attempt to destroy everything. Thick smoke spread through the hall, casting a strange glow on the defenders. It carried the smell of burning paper and a sense of loss. This was not only physical destruction but an attack on memory itself. The fire signaled a growing threat to everything Eldoria valued. As Elara was staring at the fire, her gaze fell on a hooded figure standing near the fire, untouched and calm amid the chaos. She suspected the figure was connected to the disaster. Before she could react, part of the burning shelves collapsed, scattering sparks across the floor. The fire's roar gave way to the sound of falling shelves and the archivists' cries as they moved to avoid it. When the smoke cleared, Elara looked toward the corner where she had seen the figure, but it was empty. Only heat and the smell of burning parchment remained. She felt certain the destruction was planned. This was not random chaos. Someone wanted Eldoria's past destroyed. The loss would have serious consequences. The ancient records connected the present to the divine creators of their world, and the early pacts formed the foundation of their society and faith. Without them, people could lose their understanding of their origins and beliefs. It would be like removing essential parts of their history. As the fire finally died down, it left behind a burned ruin. A heavy silence filled the archives. The archivists, covered in dust, stood in shock among the destruction. The air remained thick with the smell of destruction and a sense of loss. Elara knelt beside the ruins and touched the remains of a burned scroll. The ink had turned to ash and the parchment had crumbled. Yet she sensed a faint trace of the divine energy it once held, now weak and fading. The fire had destroyed more than paper. It had tried to erase something sacred. The attack on the archives was more than a tragedy. It was a warning. The fading blessings of Eredor, the waning favor of Maris, and the growing unease among the people were now clear signs of a larger threat. The fire was a deliberate strike against Eldoria's spiritual and historical foundation. It raised one question: what would come next? Elara understood that this was only the beginning of a greater conflict. The enemy did not seek to conquer Eldoria, but to erase it, starting with its memory. The silence after the fire in the sacred archives reflected deep grief. The air still carried the smell of burnt parchment as archivists moved quietly through the ruins. Covered in soot and exhausted, they searched through the remains of centuries of history. Elara joined them, helping to record what had been lost. Each burned fragment felt like a marker of what had been lost. Elara handled them carefully, her hands shaking as she brushed away the ash. She tried to recover what little meaning remained from the destruction. The lingering smell of smoke now symbolized a violation of something sacred, the loss of memories and history. While searching a heavily damaged section, Elara noticed something unusual. Among the gray ashes lay a small piece of parchment, mostly intact despite its burned edges. Its faded color and a faint shimmer set it apart from the destruction. Sensing it was important, she felt compelled to retrieve it. Elara carefully lifted the small fragment, its edges fragile and ready to crumble. Though damaged, it felt faintly warm in her hands. The ink had nearly faded, and the parchment was brittle. When she held it up to the dim light, a few characters in an ancient script became visible. She immediately recognized the script as belonging to the pre-unification era, a time so ancient that few scholars could read it. It came from an age of direct contact between mortals and the divine. Her heart raced with both excitement and concern. This was not a random fragment. It felt important. She traced the faded lines until the characters formed clear words. A name stood out, carrying a sense of power that unsettled her. Then she saw another name written more boldly, her family's ancestral name. It was the name passed down through generations, tied to long-held traditions and oaths. The meaning of the discovery overwhelmed her. Her family name appeared on the fragment, written in a script from Eldoria's earliest history. Beside it were symbols linked to a forgotten divine patron, a deity many scholars believed was only a myth. Now it seemed that this deity, possibly connected to the attack on the archives, was tied to her lineage. This was not a coincidence. The fire, the destruction of key texts, and the link to a forgotten deity all pointed to something deliberate. The discovery shattered Elara's sense of safety. She was no longer just an archivist watching events unfold. She was connected to a hidden divine legacy that may have been intentionally targeted. She thought her family were also scribes like her. But their name in this scroll tells something else. The discovery carried serious consequences. If her family was connected to this forgotten deity, then their history may have been deliberately erased. The symbols beside her name suggested her ancestors were devoted to, or chosen by, this divine power. What once seemed like simple family traditions now appeared to be traces of an ancient and powerful alliance. The fragment's warmth grew stronger, changing from a faint heat to a steady pulse. It seemed to respond to her touch, as if recognizing her connection to it. Elara felt unsteady as her sense of identity and her understanding of her family's past began to change. The forgotten deity, the symbols, and her family name were all connected. Together, they revealed a hidden truth that had been buried for centuries. The fire had not only destroyed scrolls, it had exposed this long-hidden connection. Elara felt a strong urge to protect the forgotten deity and her family's legacy. If they were meant to be forgotten, she would remember them and keep their story alive. She was driven by a need to uncover the truth and defend what was under attack. She looked around the ruined hall, smoke still rising and the smell of destruction lingering. Her view had changed. She was no longer just a scholar witnessing a tragedy. The fragment in her hand was now a guide and a call to act. The faded script revealed the forgotten deity's name alongside her own family name, showing her a personal connection to the threat facing Eldoria. Elara realized this was no abstract danger. It was hers to face. The discovery gave her a clear purpose: to protect her heritage and the forgotten power, and to uncover why it had been targeted. The fire had not destroyed her family's legacy. It had revealed it.